The internet can be your window to the world, or an open door that lets cyber criminals in. Online theft, webcam spying, and identity fraud are all on the rise. But you can stay safe with Kaspersky Lab, the world's most awarded internet security. Kaspersky protects your money, privacy, identity, and data with technology perfected over 20 years. So keep exploring. Kaspersky Lab will keep you safe online. Learn more at Kaspersky.com.
Football represents something we are.
Football is like life. You gotta push.
Fantasy football is about proving that you are better than your friends.
Hold up.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Faceoff,
I'm going to do what's best for the team.
where fantasy meets reality.
Pure fantasy football nirvana.
And now your hosts,
Let the games begin.
Anthony Cervino and Michael Hauff.
Welcome back, everybody, to the FF Faceoff. It's a podcast where fantasy meets reality, and we are proudly, as always, brought to you by the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, the best in the world!
My name is Michael Hauff. You can follow me on Twitter at the FF Realist. My partner in crime is Anthony Cervino. He can be followed at the Real NFL Guru. Anthony, before I ask you how you're doing, just to let the fans know today, we're going to be discussing Tyreek Hill, the fact that the news came out today that he is not going to be disciplined by the NFL. We're going to discuss that from an NFL standpoint and from a fantasy standpoint and give our 2 cents on everything in between. Anthony, with all that being said, how you doing today?
Mike, I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing good. Happy to finally be recording. As you know, it was a little bit of a journey for us to get this going. We decided to, with this being huge news, quite frankly, we decided to call on Audible on today's show. So very excited to talk a little bit about Tyreek Hill. But let's get this going. But before we go any further, let's get a public service announcement from His Lordship.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
All right, guys, you know the drill. If you like today's episode and subscribe to the channel, please leave us a comment saying that you have subscribed. And once you're done, we will reply back to as many as we can to show our appreciation to you. I always like to remind you that if you are listening in podcast formats, especially on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe to the show. Please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review telling everyone why you love the show and why we are the best damn fantasy football podcast where fantasy meets reality. And I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to the last review that we received. You couldn't have said it better. It is one of my favorite reviews that we have ever received from Mr. P212. So a big thank you, and I'm happy that you think that we are both get off my lawn types.
Yeah, it's probably true, actually. Yeah, absolutely. I would say so, at least. Yeah, I definitely have those get off my lawn moments as far as the fantasy football community is concerned. I think I'm a little cranky at times. But anyway, Anthony, speaking of cranky, and by the way, thank you for His Lordship Alfred Hayes for that wonderful message, of course.
I wonder if some of our listeners have no idea who this Lord Alfred Hayes is.
I think a majority of them do not know. But if you don't know, a little bit of go to YouTube, WWF, Lord Alfred Hayes. They probably won't be impressed. Unless you're a wrestling fan, you don't truly appreciate His Lordship. But backtracking though, speaking about people being cranky, I definitely got the vibe that people were cranky with today's news, that being that the NFL is not going to discipline Tyreek Hill. Obviously, folks know there is a long history as far as at least a few months with this particular incident with Tyreek Hill, involving his son, involving his girlfriend, allegations that he hit her, allegations that he hit his son. So a lot to take out of this. The NFL must have done their due diligence, at least we hope, because they wound up saying that they weren't going to discipline him. But Anthony, before I give my 2 cents really on the whole thing, what did you want to say about it?
Well, to start, we're all in relationships, right? We all, as humans, we have relationships in our lives. Every one of us. Marriages, friendships, work relationships. And there are 2 kinds of relationships. There is the relationship that is open and honest. And then there are the relationships that are, hey, don't ask, don't tell. What they don't know won't hurt them. Usually, the don't ask, don't tell relationships are the ones that are volatile. What they don't know won't hurt them is a normal thought process by one or both of the involved parties. I'll get away with what I'm doing while I can. It is what follows all of that. And the longer this happens, the more arrogant the person or persons become. And arrogance leads to sloppiness, which then leads to getting caught or caught up, and then your world is blown up. Nobody can sneak around forever. It all eventually comes to fruition. In the case of Tyreek Hill, he very much is a don't ask, don't tell type of guy. He wants to be the one in the public eye. He wants to be one thing in the public eye, and then wants to be someone else when he believes nobody is watching. Because when nobody is watching, that's what truly matters. It's not really what you do in front of people. It's about what you do and the decisions you make when nobody is watching, when your partner isn't there, when your friend isn't there. When nobody is watching, the type of person somebody truly is then defined good or bad. You see, Tyreek Hill had his chance. Tyreek Hill got caught up in college with, his unborn son and his now fiance, whatever she is. And then he entered the NFL with a red flag. He kept it clean for the first few years of his career, or we believe he kept it clean for the first few years of his career. And then this offseason happened. The reason why Tyreek Hill is where he is at right now is because he barely received a consequence, if any, following his collegiate incident. He then became arrogant because of a lack of consequences, which led to this past offseason's abuse, allegations, and accusations. Maybe if he was punished 4 years ago, this offseason wouldn't have happened. And now that the NFL is not suspending Tyreek Hill for his most recent incident, what's next? What will he do next? Because the arrogance will grow and he will continue to walk the line. The NFL dropped the ball here. He could have gotten 2 games, 4 games, 6 games. Ezekiel Elliott got 6 and always seems to be under the microscope. What will it take for the NFL to get things right? How far will these incidents have to go for Roger Goodell and the NFLPA to open their eyes and make drastic changes, which includes a consequence for an incoming rookie who violates a conduct policy in college? Just because it happened under the rule of the NCAA doesn't mean that they should begin their NFL career with a clean slate. And that's where it starts, and that's where it ends.
Very well said, Anthony. And, it's like I had made a tweet on Twitter that basically said that as far as football fans are concerned, because right away it felt like literally within moments of this news coming out that Tyreek Hill was not going to be disciplined. It was also noted that the Chiefs are now able to resume contract talks with Tyreek Hill. And it could potentially make him the highest paid wide receiver in football. So to me, he goes right away from, as far as football fans are concerned, he right away is one of the most vilified heels in all the NFL. And I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to say that he is most definitely guilty. There's a perception in not just football, but in life that people are guilty till proven innocent. So folks thought they had Tyreek Hill dead to rights before this news came out. He would definitely be suspended. He should be suspended. And yeah, the things he's being accused of are awfully ugly, for sure. But I think the fact that he is now able to play and the perception has been that he's guilty, that he's definitely going to be hated, for sure. And it's just like, to me, and Anthony pretty much said this already in his statement, a nice statement to a great statement, but I want to urge kind of dynasty owners here. We're going to talk about the fantasy implications of all this, but I'm not necessarily telling you to trade Tyreek Hill. I mean, this is a gift, really. Some people consider it a miscarriage of justice. Others, you should consider it a gift. You now have Tyreek Hill for a full season, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And Tyreek Hill, Anthony talked about it from dating back to his college days. He's getting caught in these situations far too often to be able to get away with, listen, whether he's guilty or not, it's happening too many times. So eventually he's going to get caught up. And, I mean, what's the suspension when he finally does serve a suspension? Is it going to be just 2 games because technically he wasn't suspended now? Or do they play this into that? And I also, Anthony, to you talking about Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, as far as the NFL is concerned, they continue to maintain a legendary status of being consistently inconsistent with disciplining players. And I get it, that's not a fair statement to make because the NFL must have done some kind of due diligence to determine that this guy didn't need to be suspended. But again, public perception, he should be suspended. So, folks, you saw the tweets today. If you have a deflated football, you're suspended for X amount of games. If you pull down a girl's top, you're suspended for this many games. If you're Tyreek Hill, you're fine. It's okay. Other people saying, thank God he didn't smoke weed, which I found amusing. But yeah, Anthony, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. We'll get into the fantasy implications, but as a dynasty owner, would you have any concern with hanging on to Tyreek Hill?
Well, I am a dynasty owner of Tyreek Hill in a few spots, and I'm going to continue to, hold on to him. I have no reason, and I get that, listen, something could happen, and a suspension could happen this year. They could find something about this case because it's not really closed. If something else came out, the NFL will do their due diligence. But if I'm going to be worried about Tyreek Hill, then am I going to have to sell all my Ezekiel Elliott stock?
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Fair point.
And back to Ezekiel Elliott, right?
Because we have to get that in, right?
Okay. I'm reading here, and I see something to where, hey, the NFL could believe that he was set up by his ex-fiancée. Well, isn't that what happened with Ezekiel Elliott, that during his whole trial, that it was starting to look like he was set up, and he still got 6 games?
Right.
There is a lot of inconsistency, and I've said it on the show before, being a conspiracy theorist that I am. Roger Goodell has it out for Jerry Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, and the Dallas Cowboys, and quite possibly doesn't really want to take the new golden boy of the NFL, Pat Mahomes, take his ace receiver away. That's the conspiracy theory here. What I mean, Pat Mahomes, league MVP,
right.
No negatives with him as we know of yet. The Chiefs are exciting offense. They are a money maker. Pat Mahomes brings ratings. So why would you want to? See, Kareem Hunt is a different story. Chiefs lost Kareem Hunt and didn't skip a beat. But I've said this before. Tyreek Hill is the reason.
They know that they weren't going to skip a beat, though.
Okay.
You know?
I mean, I get it.
Right.
But I believe this offense would have struggled without Tyreek Hill. I believe Tyreek Hill is what made this Chiefs offense what it was, because I get that Pat Mahomes did what he did last year, but Tyreek Hill played a big role in making Alex Smith look deserving of the first overall pick all those years ago. Alex Smith threw for 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns? He has never sniffed that.
No, he hasn't. No, he hadn't.
And guess what? Kelsey was there before Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill came, changed it all.
He did. All right, so listen, one positive that comes out of this, we don't have to talk about Sammy Watkins too much. Thank God he can finally drop in some folks' rankings. But Anthony, what I want to get to really quick. All right, so Tyreek Hill is going to play, okay? Let's take away any feelings you may have, not you, but in general, the listener. Let's take away the feelings that you may have of whether he's guilty, whether he's not, whether you want to roster him, whether you don't want to roster him, just as a matter of principle.
And we'll talk about that part, too.
You will. I know you will. But regardless of that, whether you're going to draft a guy or not, you still have to rank him.
No, I'm just
for folks who do rankings at home, you still have to rank a player, even if you're not going to take him, because you just need a perception of how your draft is going to go. So, Anthony, with that being said, obviously, don't give me the obvious answer, because I know what the obvious answer is. He's a top 5 wide receiver. I'm going to put you against it. Where would you rank half-point formats, the official scoring of the FF Faceoff? Where do you put Tyreek Hill?
Well, spoiler alert, Mike and I are both in the Fantasy Pros ECR contest.
Yes,
and before we went on air, when Mike said we're going to discuss where I'm going to rank Tyreek Hill, I went into my rankings and I updated them. And Tyreek Hill is my wide receiver 3. Right now behind Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins. And I had to push Odell Beckham and Julio Jones back, because Tyreek Hill, he's my wide receiver 3. Playing a full season, we see what Tyreek Hill can do and what he's capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
we don't know what Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be with Baker Mayfield.
Right. Okay.
We know that Julio Jones is going to be consistent. I don't know where he finished last year. Let's see.
Among
Julio
wide
Jones.
receivers, he finished 5th in half point.
Okay. So, really, Tyreek Hill is the one asset. I mean, outside of Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, he's the one top-tier receiver that we've seen what he can do with the team. Julio Jones, when was the last time he was a top 3 receiver? And maybe it was recently. I didn't look. But I doubt it.
Julio was a top 3. I'm scrolling back a couple of years.
Yeah,
here.
I'm in PPR, man. And
I'm
2014, 2016, right.
2015 and half point, I have him as a number 2 wide receiver.
Okay.
In 2015, that was due in large part to 136 receptions, just over 1,800 yards. But still,
4 years ago.
No double-digit touchdowns.
4 years ago.
Right. But that's how far you had to go back. Yeah. Now, just a backstory. Funny enough, of course, this morning, prior to the Tyreek Hill announcement, I decided to release my top 10 rankings for NFL wide receivers. Just for the hell of it, it went like this. It went DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, Devontae Adams.
Marquise Goodwin.
Number five was Juju Smith-Schuster. Shut up. Number 6 was Michael Thomas. 7, Antonio Brown. 8, Mike Evans. 9, my boy, Adam Thielen. Number 10, Keenan Allen.
You have Adam Thielen in your top 10?
I had him there last year. I have him there this year. Anyway, well, that's another discussion for another day, or we could do it now. It's all for fun. But Tyreek Hill, to me, He's number 1 or number 2 for me. It's going to be a tango between him and DeAndre Hopkins for me for the number 1 spot. And I say that because of this. Tyreek Hill last year, 87 receptions, 1,479 yards, ends up with 12 touchdowns. Now, what do we hear the most when we talk about Pat Mahomes replicating what he did last year? Everybody says, well, those touchdowns are going to come down. That's the one immediate takeaway. 50 touchdowns last year. Folks are saying, 35 touchdowns. Seems like a number I hear a lot, 30 to 35. Even if those numbers come down, Tyreek Hill could still easily get 12 touchdowns. Even if he goes 50 to 35, Tyreek Hill can get 12 touchdowns. I say that a lot because if you look at a lot of Pat Mahomes' touchdowns, a very large percentage came out of the backfield on those. So to me, and it was, I'm sorry, I don't have the amount in front of me, but it was almost an absurd amount of touchdowns out of the backfield as far as throwing the ball. So that may not be able to get replicated again. But 12 touchdowns out of Tyreek Hill, very doable. And I get it. I know I'm saying that with the idea that his 2 years prior were 7 touchdowns and 6, but Tyreek Hill is developing into one of the best receivers in football, one of the biggest playmakers in football. So, Anthony, and we know he's going to get a lot of yards per reception. That's going to be high. So we know
he
his
had
yards
17 yards per reception last year,
right.
8th amongst wide receivers that qualify.
Right. 15.8 in 2017, 17 yards last year. So we know that ultimately, even if he gets 87 receptions, like he did last year, the yards are going to be there. And 137 targets last year. What, is that going to drop? We talk about how George Kittle's targets, they have to drop. They can't be that high again. You can't make that case for Tyreek Hill. If anything, they may go up.
He was 11th in targets. And a big reason why he's so effective and explosive, you talk about yards per reception, right?
Right.
Yards per target, 10.8, 6th amongst wide receivers, 5th in air yards, 4th in yards per pass route run, 3rd in total target distance. All these efficiency metrics are a big reason why Tyreek Hill can produce as a top 3 wide receiver, but also not get, be in the same top 3 to 5 in targets. Because how effective he is as a deep ball wide receiver, an explosive wide receiver, because he can make plays in the open field as well.
Right. Absolutely. So, to me, he's number 1 or number 2. But for you, Anthony, he's what, number 3 or number 4?
Right now, he's 3.
Right now, he's 3. Okay.
Right now, he's locked into 3. I can't justify putting Odell Beckham at 3 because of the unknowns. He's also been hampered by injuries. And he's never played with Baker before. And then, like I said about Julio Jones, the last time he finished as a top 5, a top 3 receiver was in 2015. So, yes, Tyreek Hill is my wide receiver 3. I don't know if I can put him ahead of Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins, because I bet if I look, those 2 players are probably in the top 5 in targets. So I am going to put the players with a greater opportunity share in front of Tyreek.
Yeah, top 5 in targets last year was Julio with 170. Devontae Adams with 169, Antonio Brown with 168, Juju Smith-Schuster with 166, which is crazy when you think about it, by the way. Pittsburgh Steelers, 2 in the top 5 in targets. Again, Ben Roethlisberger will have regression. Another topic for another day. Coming in 5th was DeAndre Hopkins with 163. Anthony, just for shits and giggles, Adam Thielen was number 6, 155.
Good for him.
Because he's better than Stephon Diggs.
Good for him.
Anyway, I failed to mention the fact that Diggs was 7th, but who cares? All right, so Anthony. All right, so Tyreek Hill, does this change how you think of Pat Mahomes now.
Wait. Just
What?
And Thielen. So Thielen was 6 and Diggs was 7th.
Yeah.
And Thielen played in one more game, right?
Right.
One more game.
Yeah.
If I get a full season out of Stephon Diggs, I'm going to win that bet. Because, folks, we did make another bet. Adam Thielen versus Diggs. And, of course, I have Diggs.
Yeah, but Diggs won't get the yards that Thielen will. He doesn't catch the ball as much as Thielen does. So, and he doesn't stay healthy. But, yeah, sure. You keep telling me if he plays 16.
Listen, if he plays 16, it will happen.
Have fun. Yeah, have fun standing on the potential bandwagon. You'll be sitting on there.
Okay.
If he plays 16, sure, but he won't.
You're a small petty man.
Sure, but he won't. We could talk about that all day long.
Okay, so back what you were saying about the current situation.
Exactly, because you have nowhere to go. All right, Pat Mahomes, though, seriously. All right, so I want to ask, obviously some folks expected some sort of regression here from Pat Mahomes, from the 50 touchdowns. I talked about it a little bit earlier. Now, whatever you expected him to regress to, you probably had in mind the fact that Tyreek Hill would probably be suspended. My question is this. Wherever you had him projected prior, do your projections for Pat Mahomes go up because Tyreek Hill will be there now? Or does it stay where you had? Like I mentioned earlier, he can regress in touchdowns to the backfield, and Tyreek Hill could still manage to get 12 touchdowns again. That is doable. So does your regression for Pat Mahomes change now?
I still believe he's going to regress. I didn't think we were going to jump into Mahomes. I would have been a little bit more prepared, but right off the top of my head...
Like, where do you think you had Mahomes?
He's still my QB1.
Of course. No, at this point, we're just talking about cherry on top of the sundae. I mean, like, a number in my head was, and with my projections and such, figure around 35 passing touchdowns.
That's exactly where I have him, 35.
Right. So that number doesn't change between you had that number prior to this announcement. That doesn't go up to 40, right? Doesn't go up to 37,
no, because
right?
I was doing my projections after a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago,
right.
When we learned that if Tyreek Hill was going to get a suspension, it wasn't going to be a big ban. I was projecting 2 to 4 games that he was going to miss. I never thought after that latest report he was going to get 6, 8, 10 or the whole year. It was 2 or 4. And, in that time span, Tyreek Hill can still, score 10 touchdowns missing 2 to 4 games. So, no, my Mahomes projections do not change that much.
Okay.
That makes sense?
No, it does. Yeah, absolutely. I just want to, Mine won't change much. I mean, for the exact argument I was making earlier. So his touchdown number won't change much for me either. I was just curious, because it may change for others. But all right. So either way, we're talking about 2 top players in fantasy here. Anything else you want to talk about with the Chiefs or anything that you think may be affected by this announcement? Or do you think we've wrapped it all up here?
Anything on Travis Kelce that we should discuss? Because people are drafting Travis Kelce and have drafted Travis Kelce a little bit higher, anticipating a larger opportunity share. And he had a ton of targets last year. It's not like it could have went up that much. But without Tyreek Hill, it's all going to facilitate Travis Kelce. Does this change? Like, you're a Travis Kelce owner in the Scott Fish Bowl. Are you a little bit disappointed? Did you think you were going to get, a half a year, 4 games without Tyreek Hill? Or are you still content taking Travis Kelce where you did because of the variance and the huge drop-off at the tight end position?
No, I never drafted Travis Kelce with the idea that I'm going to draft him because Tyreek Hill will be out for X amount of games. So this way I can cash in. Was there the thought that could happen? Sure. But not enough to play into my drafting strategy.
He had 150 targets, second amongst tight ends.
Right.
People were thinking 160, 170.
Yeah. But the fact that it didn't push the needle enough for me. I knew that, yes, he could be in line for some more targets, but it wasn't enough to be to me, Travis Kelce's the number one tight end in football anyway. So to me, it doesn't change. I wasn't basing my ranking based on Tyreek Hill not playing for X amount of games. I was basing it on, I legitimately think Travis Kelce, no matter who's in the field, he's the best tight end in football as far as fantasy is concerned. So no, I would still take him as my top tight end. I think, now granted, I took him in SFB as early as I did because scoring formats suggest that, having one of the top tight ends could prove to be pretty useful. That's why I've got 2 out of 3. But so if normally I'm not a guy, I say that because normally I'm not a guy that's going to draft tight ends that early. But if you are, you should still feel completely comfortable with drafting Travis Kelce. I think it'd be just fine.
Now, moving off of Kelce before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins and Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, that's where it hurts is for Mecole Hardman. I had liked him as a late round stash.
When all else fails, fresh tactics.
Tyreek was out 4 games, 6 games. I thought that would have gone more so, and I get it, he's a rookie, but I thought that would have gone more so towards Mecole Hardman than it would Sammy Watkins. Reasons being, A, Sammy Watkins cannot stay healthy. I don't care what Sammy Watkins truther wants to get upset with me about that. Facts are facts. So that's the thing. And Mecole Hardman was more of a type of Tyreek Hill player than Sammy Watkins is, in my opinion. Just body type, playmaking ability in college doesn't always translate to the NFL, but he's more comparable to Tyreek Hill than Sammy Watkins is.
Right.
So to me, I think this hurts Mecole Hardman more. You know me on Sammy Watkins. I'm not a Sammy Watkins guy to begin with. But so maybe I'm not the right guy to ask. I'll turn it around and I'll ask you. To me, it hurts Mecole Hardman more than it does Watkins. What says you?
Well, on Sammy Watkins first, before I get into Mecole Hardman, because I was buying into Mecole Hardman all offseason because of the anticipation that Tyreek Hill was going to get or miss a substantial amount of games. Now, but let's stick to Sammy Watkins first. His ADP was relatively high. It creeped up this offseason compared to where it was. He is now sitting at the 10th pick in the 6th round in PPR scoring formats. Do you think Sammy Watkins' ADP will fall? Because it's not going to get any higher.
Yes.
But he's getting taken around guys like Dante Pettis, Robbie Anderson, Christian Kirk. And then there's Will Fuller. I would definitely bump Sammy Watkins down to the Will Fuller, which is 10th pick in the 7th round, or lower.
He's gonna fall a little. I don't think he's gonna have a dramatic fall. And I also base that. Listen, think real. I know I don't like Sammy Watkins, but thinking realistically, I think there's still some allure there based on the team in which he plays for, the Chiefs. So I think he'll drop a little bit. I could see Christian Kirk going ahead of him. I think I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think you just said Kirk is behind him. Yeah. I think Kirk, based on hype and based on what he was able to do in a sample size last year, I think he may move ahead of Watkins in this case. So, but yeah, I don't see a free fall, but yeah.
Now on to Mecole Hardman.
Okay.
He's raw. He's only played wide receiver 2 years in his life in college, and now he's in the NFL as a rookie, playing his 3rd year as a receiver. Great in the open field, very raw talent, a lot of untapped potential and development. All that being said, look at the Kansas City Chiefs depth chart. Tyreek Hill, you know you're going to get him, but if he, does something else wrong, he could be suspended at any time, just like you said. Sammy Watkins, terrible injury history. What else you have? DeMarcus Robinson, Dieter, Byron Pringle, Marcus Kemp. The Chiefs, even if, let's say this whole offseason, if we rewound it and Tyreek Hill never got into any trouble, it wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs still took Mecole Hardman, because there is a need for a wide receiver on this team who can produce outside of Tyreek Hill. And I'm not going to name Sammy Watkins because he's either not on the field, and when he is, he's barely visible.
Dwayne Bowe 2.0.
So yes, I am going to fade or continue to fade Sammy Watkins, and I'm going to buy Mecole Hardman even cheaper than I've already been buying him. I still think he's a big value. Sure, high variance, boom bust, upside type of player, but you can get him now in the double-digit rounds?
Yeah.
10th pick in the 11th round. And now that Tyreek Hill is not getting a suspension, his ADP is going to plummet. You can get a Mecole Hardman 14th, 15th round. It wouldn't surprise me. And this is for a Chiefs team who absolutely positively need another wide receiver to step up.
Mecole Hardman may even go undrafted potentially, depending on your league size. You know, if you're in a if you're in a 10-team league, it's very likely he can go undrafted now at this point.
I mean, am I crazy to still want my hands on Mecole Hardman stock?
Depending on
expectations, maybe.
No, I was going to say depending on league format, depending on roster size.
Well, yeah, but we play in leagues like with a deep roster, deep bench.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying, like, if you're in like a 10-team league, I don't know if you're necessarily picking him up. Somebody like you, sure, but I think in your average 10-team league, he's going to fall by the wayside.
I don't play in 10-team leagues, Mike.
I'm aware of that.
I can't do it.
The one thing I'm going to disagree with you on, though, I think that you talked about, and again, this is hypotheticals. We could do this all day long. But if Tyreek Hill isn't suspended, right? Isn't in the hot water that he's in, and we backtrack this whole thing back to the beginning of the offseason, and Tyreek Hill he's an altar boy. I'm not trying to discount Mecole Hardman and the type of athlete that he is, and the type of production that he can bring to an NFL team, but I don't think the Chiefs pulled the trigger on that move.
Really?
No, I don't. I think that, listen, a lot of people said it when it happened. I mean, but I think that the drafting of Mecole Hardman was a direct response to what they were anticipating with a potential Tyreek Hill suspension. I mean, drafted. We're not talking about
do what at wide receiver.
We're talking about a second round pick, 56th overall. That's a high. That's you talk about high draft pick.
I understand that, but it's a passing league,
right?
You can't trust Sammy Watkins,
right? But so you're going to draft.
Okay, you lost Chris Conley, you lost Albert Wilson the year before that, and you're stuck with Robinson, Dieter, Kemp, Pringle.
But so then the idea would be to draft a player that's very comparable to Tyreek Hill. Wouldn't you want to draft somebody more comparable to a Sammy Watkins?
Why not put as much gas out there for Pat Mahomes, a deep ball quarterback who can chuck it up there, and his wide receivers can go and get it. His speed receivers can go and get it. The Chiefs ran 2 wide receiver sets 39.1 of the time last year. 3 wide, 52.8. I think that 3 wide set number or percentage will go up because of Mecole Hardman's presence. And it might take him a little bit to get going because he is a rookie. But I think, towards the middle and the end of the season, Mecole Hardman can be an effective fantasy player. And this is somebody, like you said, could go undrafted.
Yeah, I really feel that way. And yeah, listen, we could talk all day about, did they have this
Mecole Hardman is just like Tyreek Hill. Can you imagine that? Pat Mahomes is going to be projecting 80 touchdowns. I mean, really.
then the Chiefs are they're just downright even more scary than they were last year. But again, we'll see. But yeah, I still maintain Mecole Hardman.
You are freaking out,
could go undrafted,
man.
Depending on your league size and roster depth. So, but whatever. So, all right. So, be that as it may, Tyreek Hill is in the fold in Kansas City. Probably going to talk contract. Probably going to make a lot of money. Anthony, I think we've said all that there is to say from a life standpoint, from an NFL standpoint, from a fantasy standpoint. I think we've covered all of our bases. Do you have anything to say about Tyreek Hill before we ride off into the sunset?
Yes, about Tyreek, before I go into my close. You brought up morals and the moral dynamic. And I'm going to say the same thing that I said on the Player Profiler Draft Kit when I covered Tyreek Hill earlier in the offseason.
Yeah.
And morally, I'm not condoning anything he's done or hasn't done. I don't condone any of that. It is inexcusable. But it is, and this is what I said earlier, when, a little monologue about it. It's up to the NFL. It's up to the NFLPA. It's up to Roger Goodell. It's even up to the NCAA. From a moral standpoint, you kind of have to, nip it in the bud. Do something about it before they get into the NFL if they have a track record. But you have to understand, once they get into the NFL is a big business with 32 small businesses inside of it. You saw it, Kareem Hunt. Chiefs cut him. He was signed rather quickly by not only by another team, but a team in the AFC, a team that is up and coming, and a team that could compete with the Kansas City Chiefs for a playoff spot one day. Imagine if you release Tyreek Hill and he goes to the Browns with the person who drafted him and John Dorsey. That would have happened instantly. That's not a good look for your business. And no, business doesn't always have to include morals. And I know that's not going to be a popular thing to say, but go ask Vince McMahon.
Anthony, you have a unrelenting ability to, no matter what we record, bring up either WWE or the Dallas Cowboys. It's unmatched. It's unparalleled.
Thank you.
Not sure if that's a compliment or an insult, but nevertheless.
Oh, here comes the Cowboys sound drop anyway.
How about them Cowboys?
Which was your idea. You wanted that Jimmy Johnson sound drop.
I did ask for that, didn't I? Well,
you did.
Okay. All right. So, Anthony, let's ride off into the sunset here. Why don't we wrap this bad boy up? Either way, Tyreek Hill is back. He's playing. No suspension. Top 5, top 4, top 3 receiver. To me, he's 1 or 2. Let's go, Anthony. Right off into the sunset.
Awesome. If you're listening right now in podcast format, especially you Apple Podcast users, please subscribe to the FF Faceoff. Please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review telling everyone why you love the show and why we are the best damn fantasy football podcast on the planet where fantasy meets reality. Because the more subscriptions, ratings, and reviews that we get, the more people we can reach. And in the end, we want to help each and every one of you win fantasy football championships, dominate your leagues, and absolutely positively crush the competition.
And that's an order.
We will maintain the culture of winning we've built here in the FF Faceoff for almost 3 years since our inception and over 200 episodes. Mike, as always, take us home.
This was a fun little episode to record. Tyreek Hill is playing, whether you like it or not. And we'll see where it takes the fantasy community. If you were able to draft him in any drafts now and you got him at a good price, congratulations. But, folks, here we go. And hopefully, in closing, above all else, we talked a lot about everything else with Tyreek Hill. Hopefully, his son is okay and he continues to be okay and continues to get taken care of. That really, at the end of this, is probably the most important thing out of all this. Hopefully that boy grows to be a happy young man with a good set of parents. That's the hope. So with that being said, folks, thanks for listening. Have a good one. Cheers.
your next date night or client breakfast, whether you're heading to the airport or your anniversary. No matter the event, black is always in style. The all-new Uber Black now offers premium vehicles, highly rated professional drivers, and even the ability to request a quiet ride. Uber Black. Predictably premium. For your next date night or client breakfast, whether you're heading to the airport or your anniversary. No matter the event, black is always in style. The all-new Uber Black now offers premium vehicles, highly rated professional drivers, and even the ability to request a quiet ride. Uber Black. Predictably premium.